Hi, everyone. I'm Ed Lance, member of the New Media Council Board of Delegates for the Producers Guild of America. Welcome. Welcome to our panel. Today is the first of a series that we're presenting on Meet the Innovators series. We had our New Media Council did an Innovation Award this year, and we had 12 nominees in the Innovation Award, and we've invited all 12 nominees to share with us their work that was deemed to be highly innovative in the industry. So we have a series of 3 panels coming up. This is the first of that series, and this panel we're focusing on live participatory VR experiences. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jenny Ogden. Jenny is our representative of the board of the Producers Guild of America and also our chair of the New Media Council. And Jenny will say a few words about the New Media Council and also the Innovation Award. So come on, Jenny.
Thank you, Ed. And thank you so much for producing this series. I'm really excited about this one. The New Media Council of the Producers Guild recognizes all members of the producing team, and not just traditional media, but new media and innovative formats such as VR, interactive games, special venue, as well as digital. And I'm sure I've missed something, but everything XR and innovation definitely falls under the New Media Council. So if you're producing in these formats and you're not a member, we welcome you to apply for membership. We'd love to have you. The Innovation Award is something that the New Media Council is so proud of. This was our 2nd year, and I've got to say the highlight of my year is seeing all of the amazing innovative projects that are submitted. So doing this panel with all of our nominees. There'll be 3 in the series, so we'll cover all 12 nominees this year, and I hope we make this a tradition. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to our moderator, Charles Howard. Charles is New Media Council delegate and also on the National Board of the Producers Guild, and an amazing producer across new media and film and TV. I'll hand it off to you, Charles. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Ed, for the introduction, and thank you for the panelists for joining us. We are excited to look at some of these very interesting live participatory VR experiences. Let me tell you a little bit about each of the panelists and their projects before we dive into more details with each one of them. The first one I'll tell you about is Kim Adams. She's a co-founder, president, and COO of Adventure Lab. Before co-founding Adventure Lab, Kim led a creative team at Facebook in developing the AR Storytime app for Facebook's portable video device. Kim was the head of production and executive producer at Emmy-winning Oculus Story Studio. Prior to that, Kim was part of the leadership team at Google Spotlight Stories, where she produced some of the first VR projects released worldwide. From 2009 to 2013, Kim was a producer at Pixar Animation Studios, where she led the creation of Pixar's Toons short film division, heading a team of 125 across two companies in 2 countries. She partnered with 8 new directors, producing 13 Toy Story and Cars short films, while shepherding the development of a multitude of additional Pixar short format projects, including 2 television specials. Previous to Pixar, Kim served as a visual effects producer on several films, including Apocalypto and Master and Commander, which was nominated for an Oscar for visual effects. Adventure Lab presents Dr. Crumb's School for Disobedient Pets. It's a live hosted interactive adventure that can be experienced from a tablet, desktop, or VR. Stepping into the shoes of newly recruited secret agents for the Virtual Intelligence Agency, players jump into their first mission to investigate Dr. Crumb's School of Disobedient Pets. Disguised as adorable animals, agents find themselves swept into an unexpected maze of puzzles and games that put their brains and brawn to the test. I'm excited to check that one out. One of our next panelists is Larry Cutler. He's the CTO and co-founder of Baobab Studios. Larry brings a deep well of technical leadership with over 20 years of experience in the area of animation creation and development. Larry currently serves on the Digital Imaging Technology Subcommittee for the Oscar Technical Achievement Awards. He was most recently the Vice President of Solutions at Metanautics, a big data analytics startup company acquired by Microsoft. Prior to that, Larry spent 10 years at DreamWorks Animation, where he served as global head of character technology and held leadership positions in the areas of character development, animation workflow, rigging, and character simulation. Larry began his career at Pixar Animation Studios as a technical director on the films Monsters, Inc., Toy Story 2, and A Bug's Life. His project, Baba Yaga, was created by the 6-time Emmy Award-winning interactive animation studios, Baobab Studios. This VR experience invites the user as the main character into a haunting fairy tale world. Your character uncovers mysteries as they encounter an enigmatic witch named Baba Yaga, and engage the user to explore multiple endings depending on the choices they make. It includes an all-star cast including Jennifer Hudson, Kate Winslet, Daisy Ridley, and Glenn Close, another exciting project to look at. Tanya Lee Soto is an interactive producer, Mexican-American director, producer, and content creator. She is currently an interactive producer at Nexus Studios, a film and interactive studio creating innovative experiences for entertainment, art, and branded content, where she produces projects and emerging technologies, exploring how these new forms of storytelling are changing the way we interact and connect with the world. Prior to that, Tanya was the producer for art and tech studio Tender Claws, creator of award-winning video games, including today's VR experience, The Under Presents. The Under Presents is where immersive theater meets VR. It's a narrative-driven mystery that demonstrates how interactive entertainment with live performance can be effectively delivered to viewers at home. The central hub of this experience is The Under, an otherworldly lounge that serves as a jumping-off point into the unknown. It is an intriguing multiplayer experience set between two worlds, a jaunty vaudeville stage and a harrowing survival narrative. Users uncover the story of a ship stranded in time as supplies dwindle and day by day an otherworldly mist rolls closer. You follow characters' interlocking fates as all journeys forward must turn back or become lost. That's going to be fun. And last but not least, Brendan Bradley. He's a multi-award-winning actor, writer, director, and producer, known internationally as America's scrappy storyteller, with 100 plus IMDb credits, 50 million plus viewers online, and a leader in the virtual theater movement, performing using groundbreaking XR VR tools. He established the Integrated Technology Lab at NYU's Tisch School for the Arts to foster the next generation of multidisciplinary live storytellers. And during the pandemic, Brendan began releasing free tutorials and case studies for adopting ubiquitous streaming tools for live performance, including a customizable virtual theater in your web browser that allows anyone in the world to get back on stage for free. His project Jettison was developed by a group of theater and XR creators who teamed up to produce truly experimental live theater browser-based VR experience. The VR experience features 3 strangers stranded in a lifeboat who discover an unexpected stowaway. So those are our panelists. We're going to begin with Kim Adams and Adventure Lab. So please let me welcome Kim to this conversation. Hi, Kim.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
And I understand, Kim, we have a surprise guest. One of your co-founders is with us, right?
Yes, Max Plank is joining me today. Max, are you there? Yay!
Wonderful.
Here, yes, but I'm really here to support. This is Kim. You take it away in terms of diving in, and I'm here to answer questions and fill in our details.
Awesome, sounds good.
Well, wonderful. It's great to have you both here, and great to learn a little bit more about Adventure Lab. Tell us a little bit how this project came to be. What was the genesis of it in the beginning?
Well, do you want me to present my deck too? I can kind of take you through.
Sure, that's a great way to start.
Okay, cool. Let me just pull up. And I'll tell you the story that way. How's that?
Looks good.
Awesome. All right, cool. So I'm Kim Adams, co-founder and producer at Adventure Lab, and Max Plank is my co-founders on as well. And before I dive into Dr. Crumb's School for Disobedient Pets, I want to first share a bit about our background and sort of give more context about what we're up to. We built a platform for social interactive experiences that are virtual and also live hosted. So Max and I have sort of a history of building innovative teams that make novel entertainment. So over the years, we've led creative tech teams at places like Pixar, Google, Oculus, and Facebook. And we kind of kept moving out to the edge of what was possible at all those places. And although we worked on some pretty groundbreaking stuff, we didn't see anything out there yet a couple years ago when we started this company that utilized cutting edge tech, spoke to the growing trends that we were seeing, had the magic of a live performer, and something we've been searching for in XR, a business model that's actually scalable. So powered by a live performer, we connect friends and families across distance through play. We make well-crafted adventures that feel very responsive, spontaneous, and different every time. Here's a quick look at our how it works when the players are in VR.
Yeah, I'm excited. No more Mr. Night Sky.
Okay, so there's a few trends that Max and I've been tracking for the last.
One thing, Kim, just to notice is I think the audio is pretty muted. So the video is coming through great, but I don't think anyone got to hear the audio from it. But I think it kind of conveyed the idea pretty well. But I think if you have any other videos, might want to make sure you're share. Yeah. Or,
Yeah. It's a little stunted there, and that's just the challenge of Zoom. But
Exactly. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for letting me know. They were having a great time. They were laughing and having a great time. So there's a few trends that Max and I were tracking the last couple of years that showed us that now is the time for this new kind of platform. So first, even before the pandemic, millennials and Gen Z were hanging out digitally on platforms like Fortnite, Minecraft, and Roblox. And now, of course, we all know how to live, work, and play on these digital platforms like Zoom. Also, next-gen audiences really want to interact with their content and have it interact back. So that's why we're seeing platforms like Twitch, Clubhouse, and Discord take off, because that feeling of intimacy and interactivity. So they're looking for experiences that are happening now, unique to them, and will never happen the same way again. And last, the definition of performer is expanding. So from traditional entertainers to Twitch streamers to TikTok influencers, performers are really looking for new ways to connect with their audiences. And we believe the next great media platform is going to sort of marry social games and storytelling. Social games are all about connecting us to one another, and storytelling is all about connecting us with an experience through character and world building. So our sort of secret ingredient is enabling a live performer to bring these interactive social experiences to life. We're creating a double-sided marketplace for both performers and guests. So we give performers the tools to schedule their own showtimes. They schedule times that work for them and they publish those showtimes to our site. Those showtimes get booked and the performer gets a confirmation, and then they spin up the cloud from wherever they are in the world at the right time from the comfort of their home, from their headset. And then we've recently made it so that guests can connect from any hardware device with a camera. So laptop, PC, tablet, or from within inside a VR headset. And they're all greeted by the live performer, who curates a 40 to 60-minute interactive experience, which is sort of a mix of social gaming and immersive performance. The performer can puppet multiple characters, they can control different aspects of the gameplay as they personalize each adventure, so it feels really unique to each group. They can also stream the adventure out to a very large watching audience. And what makes this idea so scalable is that we've created this new gig economy for performers. There's no brick and mortar location for guests to drive to. There's no set build out. There's not even any costumes. So as long as the performers have a $300 VR headset, they can perform from anywhere. And we empower them to be a virtual entertainer and a game master. Our hosting tools are easy enough so that they can operate them with ease. We started in January 2019 by first creating and testing some core game mechanics. We did that for several months until we really defined what felt fun and intuitive and easy to use for people. Then we doubled down on those mechanics and spun up a team to create our beta of Dr. Crumb's School for Disobedient Pets, which we premiered at 2-Bit Circus's beta night. We knew we were onto something there when we had a line out the door for 6 hours. So after Tuba, we kept testing and iterating. We tested with all kinds of people, all different levels of experience in VR in different environments. And that testing really informed the experience that we launched in May of 2020. The Dr. Crumb School for Disobedient Pets is an all VR adventure that's a blend of escape room and immersive theater. The overall narrative, as you read before, is that you and your friends are new recruits of the VIA, the Virtual Intelligence Agency. You're asked to disguise yourselves as house pets in order to infiltrate Dr. Crumb's evil lab, where you're put through a series of minion tests, and you have to work together cooperatively to beat the clock. The experience is driven by the performer, who puppets up to 3 characters during the story. And the performers each sort of do their own take on the characters that they embody, doing their own accents, which sometimes change from show to show. And although there's a script for performers to use, there's also a lot of room left for improv so that they can really make each adventure feel unique to every group. There's a couple of minutes of show footage so that you can see how the narrative is set up, as well as how some of the improv moments work and how guests need to really play cooperatively together in this experience. And Max, I'm going to crank this up. Let me know if you can hear this. Okay, hopefully that gives you a good sense. So we've learned a ton over the last couple of years, and although we don't have a lot of time to go into this, we thought we'd just highlight a few areas. So when creating this experience, we really needed to address sort of the essentials on the left there in order for people to have a delightful time. Most of these things can be addressed through the design of the mechanics, the onboarding experience, and the live performance. Onboarding correctly, taking your time, enough time to do it, is really key to people understanding what world are they in, who are they in the world, and what's expected of them. And the mechanics really need to be simple enough that people can quickly learn how to locomote and how to play together cooperatively, because no one can have fun when they're overwhelmed, confused, or worried that they're doing something wrong. And there's something really magical about having a live performer in this space, someone whose job it is to make sure that everyone has a great time. That makes people feel safe. Ultimately, people want to feel seen and heard. So it's really important that they start to feel comfortable talking and interacting with the live performer as well as each other. And the performers have developed a number of ways to achieve giving them this sort of license to play. When we get these things right, it's really touching how connected folks feel by the end of the experience. Sometimes they haven't seen their friends for a really long time, and you can sort of feel the delight while watching them. So we've learned a ton about the process, and just a few headlines of things that are, I would say, call out as different from more linear filmmaking. We work with engineers, artists, creative designers, writers, puzzle and game experts. And unlike in a linear pipeline, our teams really work in parallel as much as possible so that one team doesn't get too far out ahead of the others. We try to prototype really often, as fast as possible. And we test like crazy with both guests and performers. We test internally with our engineers, and then next we do friends and family testing, then we do inner circle testing, and then we finally do proper testing with our official play testers. We also do a lot of guest surveys, and we frequently look at that feedback for patterns. And one of the biggest things we've learned in working in XR that's that even though it's uncomfortable and it's against everything that I had learned previous in my career from visual effects and places like Pixar, we've learned to launch an experience before it feels perfect. So our current public build is actually, we call it our ABE build, our awesome but embarrassing build, meaning there's about 100 things about it that we want to fix. But by getting it out there and having people play with it and launching it to the public, we can really see what works and what doesn't. And we found that even though it feels really rough to us, it still might be pretty delightful to other people. Here's a little bit of what people have been saying. So we launched Dr. Crumbs in May of last year to a pretty awesome response. We sold out the first 8 weeks and we had to hire more performers to keep up. We've now operated for almost a year. On May 22nd, it'll be a year. We've run about 1,000 people through the experience across 16 countries, gotten 5-star reviews, won a bunch of awards, and gotten a lot of really generous attention from the press. 96% of folks say they want to come back for another adventure. Some other feedback that we got from folks is that they said, you know, I'm the only person I know with a headset. Is there any way for my friends to play with me? So we dove in over the summer. We spent about 11 weeks doing a prototype to see if it would be fun to interact with a live performer who is responding and interacting with guests both in VR and also through a browser. We came up with something surprisingly fun and really delightful. And here's a super quick glimpse into what that experience is like. I'm sorry for the dogs barking.
Kim, I'm wondering, just because the audio, there's a little bit of noise background. You might want to share again, but share your computer audio, because I think what you're getting noise cancellation. That's muting it out.
Good recommendation, yes.
Yeah.
Got it. Where do I do that? Where's left from?
It might be in your preferences.
Usually I'd have my family here to control the dogs barking, but they ran out of gas.
Well, go ahead and share it, Kim. Let's just keep going, and we will forgive all discrepancies.
All right, thanks.
Kim, at least to let you know on my side, it was pretty choppy and we couldn't hear very much. So you might want to just describe what it was really quickly.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So in our new experience, you can join from any browser. So any piece of hardware with a camera, you can join from. You can meet up with your friends in VR and play with them together, and the host interacts with all of you. It's pretty fun. So VR escape rooms were just the beginning. Next, you may see a wide range of content on our platform, from murder mysteries to game shows to ghost hunts, where the performer embodies the poltergeist, and also educational experiences. You could also imagine getting a tour of the galaxy by a performer playing an astronaut. And of course, there's really awesome opportunities to work with studio IP, bringing guests up front and personal with their favorite legacy characters. And that is just a little bit about Adventure Lab.
Well, thank you, Kim and Max. That's really, really impressive. That's a wonderful presentation. It's what I'm so impressed with is that there's the business model that you've built behind this, that you've really determined a platform and a way to make it accessible, but also to monetize it as well. Was that always the vision from the beginning for you too, or is that something that evolved as the marketplace responded to the original creative ideas?
I'll just jump in, Max. So it wasn't our original vision for sure. It was to create something that was cooperative, that would connect people through play across distance, but also very much a part of our vision was to create this new gig economy for performers, so that they could perform for anyone, reach their audiences in a new way.
Yeah, I think that trend we were seeing in how the next generation they're all creators. Kids at 12, they all have YouTube channels. They are all creating on TikTok. It felt like there was a huge opportunity to tap into that potential energy. And that for us felt like that was why it was worthy of starting this company.
Right. Now, do you all have a vision about how you want to sort of grow and market the company and really reach that broader audience?
Go ahead. I've talked already. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. For us, we started with an escape room like experience where you and your friends have to talk to each other, cooperate, and there's a feeling of you're either going to succeed or fail together. And people are loving it. It is pretty cerebral, and escape rooms, unfortunately, once you do them once, you're kind of done with it. And we want something that once you do it, you can't wait to do it again with a new group of friends. And so we think that the kind of content we need to explore is more repeatable. And so that's why we're excited about stuff like a trivia game show like experience where you can come. It's like a weekly habit you do instead of going to a bar, you can do this from your computer. And that's also why we're excited about the haunted house. It's much less cerebral, more about going in, being scared, giving the hosts ways to scare their audience. And we feel like it'll be much more shareable. We've heard from folks like at Twitch that said, the reason why Among Us worked so well was because people love to see deception. They love to see something where personality comes out. And if you see people who are genuinely scared and emotional, we think that'll be a lot more fun to watch, and will draw people in through to actually be on the player side.
Right. And then something I was impressed by was your sort of agile style of development. Sort of quick prototypes and a lot of testing really just sort of getting it out there to sort of see what works, even though it may not be finished. Did you all naturally come to that process, or is that just something that evolved through your own development along the way, or from your early experience in animation? I'll give this to Kim.
I would say, yeah, I mean, it's something we learned in XR, especially at places like Oculus Story Studio. So we started the transition there, and then being a startup, you know, you have to be scrappy and you have to be fast. You don't have a big runway to make major changes, so you can't go too far down one direction without doing a whole lot of testing, and then being willing to sort of pivot to all the feedback that you're getting. So you have to consistently prototype, iterate, and respond very quickly. So I would say, yeah, it's something we had learned in the past at sort of better funded companies, but something that we really put into practice as a startup.
Right. And then I wonder, you know, I love how you responded to the marketplace. You made an adjustments for laptop and tablets. Are you still making adjustments? Because we know that obviously the hardware in this industry is a moving target. How are you anticipating the changes that are coming in the next 6, 12, and 36 months? Max.
I would say that one thing we were worried about when we started the company is, will performers put on VR headset to do this type of experience? And that's something that we have a wait list of 100 performers who can't wait to jump into this. And these are performers that have headsets right now. So we feel like there's enough, the market is rich enough for on the performer side. It's the player side that I think we need to see the marketplace evolve a little bit more, so that there can be real demand for the hosts. And that's why we wanted to expand to devices everyone has right now. I think that the idea of the host using VR to create performance is a killer use of the technology. But I think players, they can be on a browser, they could be in VR, they could be in AR. I think that that is where we're excited about VR, is it's really just this cheap mocap system for the person who's curating the experience. And so that's why we want to open our eyes to what are the other ways that players can get into this, so that really in the end, we want to create a new industry. We want to give these talented people a way to make money doing what they love to do.
Right, right. Sort of like what YouTube has done for so many, storytellers as well. Wonderful. Any challenges or any significant challenges in the development process that you want to share that surprised you or took you in a new direction that you didn't anticipate?
Just the one thing I always think of is narrative, right? It's always interesting. We're trying to do this, find the right sort of mashup between immersive theater, games, escape room in this case, and narrative. And so I think one of the things we learned early on is that if you have a scripted experience that you're basing everything on, if you have too much dialogue and too much talking by the performer, what we've learned to do as good audience members is sit back and listen. So immediately you have people just not participating, which is exactly the opposite of what we want to happen. So I think for us, one of the major ahas was realizing like, oh, we can't, like, this is not something where we can have a lot of narrative drive. We have sort of this this narrative bed with tropes that are very familiar, right? The evil scientist trope, and you have these friendly characters so that people feel safe and like there's something familiar. And then we have a lot of room for improv, but the performers also have a lot of room for interaction and back and forth and call and response to keep people active and sort of give them license to play. You know, like when you're walking into Disneyland, whether you have the ears on or not, you feel that like that license to play. And so that's one of the things that we worked really hard on was that sort of onboarding and finding that right level of interaction.
Well, I think you all found that right level. It's really come together nicely. I wonder, startups often, once they get their footing with their with their development team, their programmers and testers, sometimes they're challenged by coming up with new, fresh, creative ideas. What's your approach for like a creative pipeline of new projects? You've hinted a little bit, but what is your plan?
We'll give it to Matt. Take that one. The dogs are barking.
Yeah. A lot of what we're going after was informed by our customers. I think that one of the reasons why we wanted this iterative process and get something out there is because we wanted to understand what people I mean, it's been a magic trick for us to teach people what it is to be in an immersive performance / game / escape room. And when they wrap their mind around it, they're the ones who are telling us, oh man, I would love to be in a scary thing, or I would love to do a game show type of experience. And so we, a big part of what we do when we offboard people is we send them a survey, and we've suggested, hey, would you love an underwater pirate treasure hunt type of thing? Would you love an adventure in space? Would you love a haunted house? And based on what they are telling us, that's where we're going.
Yeah, I think the survey is a really brilliant idea for you all to just, get feedback on the engagement. And so what worked, what didn't work, what would they like to see more, and exactly how can we make it better and keep growing the product?
Oh, and I should also say that our hosts play a big role. They're as much of our customers as our players are. So when they say, hey, would you like to do a game show, and their eyes light up, that's good signal. That's what inspires us.
Yes, I can see that. And I think what we're going to discover is that there's a lot in common with you and some of our other panelists in terms of the creative approach that you're taking and some of the way you're engaging talent out there. I want to thank you too for sharing the high level information about Adventure Lab, and hang out for a bit. We're going to do a sort of a general Q&A with everyone towards the end. I'm going to segue quickly to one of our other panels, but thank you two so much.
Great, thank you. Can't wait to hear from everyone else.
Thanks, Charles.
Sure. Larry, let's talk about Baba Yaga.
All right. Well, first of all, I wanted to also introduce Kane Lee, my co-producing partner. So Kane is our head of content at Baobab, and he was also an executive producer on this project and instrumental in making it happen, and especially getting all of the amazing voice talent we have on this. So what I thought I would do is just quickly show some pretty pictures and some videos and talk a little bit about the project, and then you can ask me some questions too. So hold on just a sec. Let me share my screen.
Absolutely. And Kane, thank you so much for being here. We're glad to have you with us. Great, thank you. That's a nice little clip.
Yeah.
Very, again, wonderful guys, very, very inspiring. And I love the presentation of the slides you were rolling through at the beginning, Larry. Mm-hmm. Tell us a bit about some of that development process, because it was fun to sort of see some of your work in those slides. Tell us again how you all began that creative journey to find your version of Baba Yaga.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that was really fun about this project is that from the very beginning, we leaned into this kind of theatrical and stagecraft design where everything is, very theatrical. It's not based in reality. And, I think that was something our co-director, Matthias, really brought to this project, was this vision that we could actually, think of it as this, the set in 360 degrees. And so, one of the, as an example, we always thought of having these bookend sequences at the prologue and the epilogue that were actually just like pop-up books. And so, you can imagine an animated pop-up book, but occurring all around you. And so, all of those elements could actually be sort of 2D flat cards. And so, of course, from this sort of theatrical design, it allowed us to play with, first of all, lighting setups where we sort of shine a spotlight on someone when we need to see them, so we can focus your eye really easily, and then shine a spotlight somewhere else. And, we could have, I think in the forest sequence, which you saw a lot of artwork for, there were 34 different lighting changes from the beginning of that sequence to the end, which was, about 4 or 5 minutes. And it also allowed us to play with combinations of real geometry that's there, but also lots of flat, cards that exist, in the background. And it overall, it created a world that, just sort of had this heightened reality and felt like it was a storybook. And we even extended that into the animation. So most of the animation is animated on 2, so it almost has a stop motion feel. And so just ultimately everything should really feel handcrafted and, and really designed. Of course, the other end of the spectrum is that these projects all run on the Oculus Quest, which is basically the constraints of, it's running on a mobile headset or, mobile phone powered headset. And so that we also have to look for design conceits that actually work well with that very small sort of render pipeline. And so this actually lent itself to that, which we were excited by. You know, of course, that made it think like, oh, this will be easy, and it's anything but easy, you know, to actually realize. And in many ways, the sort of pop-up book sequences that really are supposed to be these cheap 2D sequences ended up being the most complex in the VR piece, and were the last sequences to finish, of course.
Well, again, the complexity is understandable, but also the richness of the design comes through. And so again, bringing a pop-up book to life and making it three-dimensional was your goal, and I think you guys really captured that. So, but let me switch to Kane for a second, since we have him as our special guest here. Tell us how you all ended up bringing on such heavyweight talent like Kate Winslet and Jennifer Hudson and you know, Daisy Ridley. I mean, Glenn Close. How did you get those incredible ladies involved?
Well, I think you know, they very much align with, you know, the values of our studio, and you know what everyone, you know, on here tonight is all about. They believe in innovation, you know, and we always start when we're thinking about our casting decisions creatively first, you know, like, but then we try to think bigger in terms of like, we have this opportunity where we're trying to break new ground in animation and in storytelling and in cinema. You know, what are things we can do uniquely about our cast that might be a little bit more difficult if we were at like a legacy media corporation, or just somewhere with a lot more rules, and you know, we're our own decision makers. And from a very early stage of our development, you know, we decided, let's do an all-female cast. This is about redefining what a witch is, you know, what our relationship to power. Witches have been demonized for centuries. A lot of them, you know, Eric has stories of, you know, women who were discriminated against because they would take the bark of a tree and use it to heal someone's illness. And you know, people who were connected to nature. So it really was this opportunity for us to kind of dig into, you know, what is an all-female cast in animation and VR about. Our studio is also co-founded by Maureen Fan, who's one of the few female minority CEOs at the intersection of Silicon Valley and Hollywood. And it's always been really important for us in all of our work to date. All the past 6 years, we mostly cast females and minorities because they have historically not been, you know, the leads of these major animated motion pictures. So we really, you know, are striving to be different, but like the creativity and the innovation behind what we're doing really aligned with Kate Winslet, Daisy Ridley, Glenn Close, and Jennifer Hudson. Kate is our eponymous witch Baba. She's a master of not just many different accents, which she really experimented with us on, but she's a master of mood, and she really brings her Oscar caliber talent to this exciting role. And Daisy Ridley, she plays your sister Magda, and she excels at exactly what our director Eric and Matthias were seeking, which is a complex performance where you show courage not from the lack of fear, but the ability to take action in spite of that fear. And then Glenn Close plays Daisy's mother. She's the chief. She's the leader of the human settlers on this island. She's a warrior and a legend, and we wanted someone who's literally legendary, like Glenn. And then, you know, our fellow executive producer, Jennifer Hudson, we needed her Oscar caliber talent without giving away too much. And you could probably see a bit from the clips we showed. We needed someone with an amazing range and ability to not just give one voice, but many voices to the diverse life of this enchanted forest that you discover has a voice or many voices of its own. And that sort of links back again to that sort of theme of witches being defined over the years in ways that discriminated against women, us being able to redefine what it means. Not only that, taking one of the reasons they were persecuted, which was looking, you know, finding ways to heal humanity with nature and giving nature a voice in this experience as well. So that's a really long way of saying, you know, we had a common vision, and we couldn't be prouder of this cast.
Well, no, it's a great answer, and I think that my follow-up question in this area is for those aspiring storytellers who are listening at home and seeing this and getting inspired to try and go down this road. What did your pitch deck look like? What did you share and show those star talent ladies to entice them to get involved in the story? What was it that you presented to them?
I mean, I think it's a combination of they're all creative driven, right? So, show off your creative. When you're going into a new space like virtual reality and using, working with people like Larry who are bringing, AI and intelligence and emotional intelligence into our characters, like, don't be afraid of that. But then also give them, I think we're really lucky that our chief creative officer is Eric Darnell, because he, has a track record of 5, directing and writing 5 hit animated movies. So he's worked with big stars. So, we kind of have a unique proposition of being able to work with a very innovative team that's trying to push the boundaries, experimenting. We'll see what happens with sort of like the sure-handedness of someone who's collaborated with A-list talent for many years. So we're lucky that way, but we've also executive produced, work with really amazing other animation studios and VR studios. We're doing something called Paper Birds with Argentine animation studio called 3DAR. And of course, we've worked with them on casting, and we're really excited. We got an A-lister that we'll announce in a couple weeks for the world premiere of that at Tribeca Film Festival. And again, I think it's showing the art, showing who's behind you. It's that balance of everything, let's take some risks, but we'll make sure you have the best people to take those risks with.
Right, great. Let me circle back to Larry real quick. You talked about some of your the design challenges and working with the Oculus. What were some of the things you discovered working with the game engine that made things a little more challenging than you expected? Where were some of the potholes that you discovered along the way?
Well, where to begin? No, in all honesty, from the very beginning of our company, the idea of being in a game engine where everything is being rendered in real time and everything can kind of react to what you're doing is both a blessing and a curse. So on one hand, it was a big, huge hurdle to be able to say, hey, how can we take all of these amazing character performances and subtle acting and animation and not have it render overnight, on a fancy computer, and instead have to render in 11 milliseconds. Like, how are we going to be able to do that? And so, that was a problem we started tackling very early on. But the opportunity, once you get over that, of being in an interactive game engine where you really can do anything, and where when a character like looks you directly in the eye and you're in VR, it's just so powerful. And so for Baba Yaga specifically, for us, this was really sort of an evolution in terms of this was one of our first projects where you are the hero character. You and your sister going on this journey. We have human characters that are AI driven, so they have to capture the emotional weight of as Kane said, your sister Magda is 10 years old, and she's venturing out in this forest with you, and she is fearful, but she is brave because she decides to do it anyway. And so you want to capture that, that amazing performance that Daisy gives, but she has to respond to you wherever you are. And so everything is alive and is AI driven. And, our entire projects now have to be completely not time-based. They're basically encoded based on what you do and how, how your character is going to react to you based on the choices that you make. And so, it gives us an incredible opportunity and power to be able to tell really rich stories that are interactive and where you have an interesting role to play. But it has forced us to rethink entirely how we create animated projects. And so, even all the way, like when Eric, he's a writer, so he writes scripts, but the way we encode the scripts and the way he writes them has had to completely change to, so that we could capture all of the nuances of what's going to happen when, if I do this and if I do that. And so, yeah, it's specifically in this project, I would say the thing that we've really pushed on is making sure that your choices matter and especially have a profound impact on the endings. And so we were always really excited by this idea of, Baba Yaga is who she is because she's got this mask on. But at the end, you have this opportunity to become Baba Yaga. And so just, from a purely like mechanics standpoint, the idea of being able to put on the mask and become Baba Yaga, like from the very beginning, we were just waiting for that moment. But we really, the choice that you make is actually really a really profound one, where if you don't take the mask, one of you has to become Baba Yaga, you or your sister. And so if you don't take the mask, then your sister is going to, and it means that she's never going to be able to see her family again. And as the older sister, if you do take the mask, then you have this big responsibility of what type of witch do I want to become? And we, end up having very distinct endings, but it's your actions, how you actually act, that determine sort of what type of witch you're going to become. And so we really put a lot of thought and care into making those choices really meaningful and hopefully reflective of something about you.
Right. And speaking of choices, I mean, how many options do you anticipate for each reaction?
Well, the thing that's really great about VR is that you can actually have, you can have an overarching arc of a story and, sort of some larger choices that you make. But along the way, everything that you do is, has a unique pathway through and how the characters react to you. And I think that's one of the things that we've gotten better at with each of our projects, of how to make each time you go through it a really unique journey. And so I think that that's what's so exciting about VR is that as we, build up characters who really have history and really remember what you're doing, and that changes their performance, even if we decide to kind of rein that in and not have something that has a zillion tendrils and is, a complete like choose your own adventure. So we still have some really important spine to the story. It just allows for a really rich, rich experience. And a lot of times you don't even realize, because you don't see all the other ways that things can go or all the subtlety in there. You don't even realize that that the path you took is just one of many.
Right. And then I wanted to just follow up on sort of the real-time animation and the challenges you may have had with lighting in real time. Tell us a little bit about some of those challenges you might have discovered.
Yeah, I mean, lighting, is one of the areas that is just completely different from how you do in a feature film, because in a feature film, everything is to the shot and to the frame. And so you place a lot, like you can really have fancy rim lights and everything, and it's tweaked just so, and, the same way you would on a movie set. And in VR, you can be anywhere. And so the challenge is that because everything's rendering in real time, the number of lights that you can have, especially the number of lights that cast shadows in realistic ways, you're heavily constrained. And then on mobile, it's even worse, and so we've, really had to sort of push some technology in there, especially for the things like the theatrical lighting, where we're actually changing the lighting. So we're getting all these different dynamic lighting situations that are occurring. And but I think what's nice about that is that what we learned this on Crow, is that by leaning into theatrical lighting, it actually is a great storytelling mechanism. Much like in the theater, where you shine your spotlight on the person, and even though you could be anywhere in the set, like you're going to look where that light is. And right. So we did a little bit of that in Crow, but on this project, because it really lent into the design, we leaned very heavily into the use of theatrical lighting and changing the lights and not having it be like, built into reality. And I think that was one of the fun things with the lighting in the forest sequence, is it starts out completely dark, and there's only, and then a spotlight comes up and you see a little girl climb up over the hill, and that's Magda. And that's all you see. And you just see her in silhouette. And then by the end of the sequence, like the whole area is illuminated, but we've really slowly revealed everything and only the parts that matter. And so we can actually throw away geometry when it's not important anymore, to go along with that theatrical lighting. So, we're definitely heavily constrained. And so we have to be very clever about how we do the lighting. And we did a lot of, hand painted lighting as well in this project, just to sort of keep with the design, but also because it's very efficient. And hopefully the end result, you really feel that, that the theatrics in that, but it also is, is a great way for us to really direct your eye to the right place at the right time.
Right. Certainly young people, teenagers can be tempted to push the envelope and see how dark they can make things just for the fun of it. Are there any sort of guardrails that you guys established in terms of how the person who chooses to be Baba Yaga, in terms of the way they treat the world and treat the sister?
Yeah, we're very conscious of sort of the younger generations, and if you look at Generation Z and even the generation that comes after them, the number one social issue for them is the environment, and and I think that what's very much revealed in our piece as you go through it, you think the conflict is between Baba Yaga and the humans. But then you realize as you enter the forest that the forest has, it's enchanted and has a voice of its own, and it's actually being protected by Baba Yaga. And the setup of our story is that these human settlers arrive on this mysterious island, and they hack away at the forest in order to survive. But in so doing, they encourage the wrath of Baba Yaga. Does she take it too far? I mean, I think it's very much not a black and white sort of decision, and it's something that we're really excited and to have younger audiences explore and think about the difference between good and evil in this case, because in this case both sides thinks the other side is being evil, and that's often the case with a lot of issues, especially dealing with our planet, dealing with our relationship to power, doing, the idea of what do you do with this power once you get it? What is the right decision? What is the right choice? So we hope these questions are thought-provoking more than about embracing evil. It's more about the idea of, like, when you have this power and you see different sides, what are you going to do with that power? And what are the consequences going to be? So I don't think we go so dark in one direction, but we're trying to create something that is balanced and thought-provoking. The United Nations actually had Baba Yaga become its sort of launch partner for its Act Now campaign on climate change. They don't typically partner with Hollywood, I think, because there's a lot of, they don't like to mix politics with entertainment too often, but they were really they were really enamored by us trying to take a classic fairy tale and turn it on its head, and have this sort of theme about our relationship with nature and our choices around it, without hitting the audience over the head with save the planet or stop deforestation. It was more of an entertaining way to play with these ideas, and to see things not always as a zero-sum game. And to look for, what is that third way where you might be able to find balance.
Well, I think you guys have done a wonderful job of sort of balancing your vision and your goals creatively, but also giving the players choice and thought-provoking experiences. And congratulations that the United Nations plucked you all and has partnered with you all and appreciates your your efforts in diversity and inclusion and climate. So wonderful work, guys. I'm gonna please hang on for some more conversation at the end. And I'm gonna switch over to Tanya to talk about the Underpresents.
Well, hello. I'm going to start presenting. I'm going to switch back and forth, so please bear with me.
Absolutely.
But to start, let me know you see that.
Looks good.
All right. So I'm here to talk about the Underpresents, which is a VR experience that blends live immersive theater with real actors performing remotely through VR headsets. The Underpresents is a project from LA Art and Tech Studio Tenderclaws, for which I was the producer for the past 4 years. Tenderclaws masterminds are Danny Canizaro and Samantha Gorman, who founded the studio in 2014, pursuing long-form narrative projects that deeply marry form and content. I came on board when we did a partnership with Google to create virtual reality, which was one of the launch titles for Daydream. And a little later, Tendar, which was one of the first AR apps using AR Core, where you can grow a virtual pet fish by feeding them your emotions and the emotions of your friends, while it inevitably gains sentience. The success of these two projects allow us to create a new partnership, this time with Oculus, who funded the Underpresents. And it was a little surprising because the Underpresent is a really crazy project. And again, a lot of what Tenderclaws does is what has gotten all these projects funded, because it's always exploring a new medium and its new storytelling possibilities. Let me stop sharing this. And now I'm gonna share with you the trailer for the experience.
We'll hope the audio is accommodating.
Hope so. Okay.
Very nice, Tanya. Very nice.
Now
I love the world, and I love the music in it. Was it always envisioned in that way, to have such a strong music presence as part of the story in the world?
Yes, it always was. Because part of creating this project was partnering with a bunch of performers and actors. And when I say performers, I mean real performers in New York who had all these really weird stage acts. The stage acts that you see in the Under are actual, real shows that you can find in Brooklyn. We just made their avatars. But let me keep on going with these slides.
Please do. Please do.
We obviously, of course we do, but we see the Underpresents as a groundbreaking approach to interactive entertainment that combines gaming, narrative storytelling, and theater, all within a dynamic environment. The project took 2 years to make when it went into full production, but we started working in it since 2016. During the production, we had several teams working in parallel, but the truth of the matter is Tenderclaws is a really small independent studio. And when I say really small, is we were somewhere between 10 to 15 people. We did scale up at parts, you know, a little more designers, sound design, but it's always been a small studio. But throughout these 2 years, you know, we had several teams working in parallel, and creative and tech were always working hand in hand, informing each other and making decisions. And we did, for this experience, we built a bunch of tools from scratch. Like I'll talk in a minute, the actors build, the way we visualize the script. It was a lot of work. And as I was saying, the original desire for the Under was to have remote actors in the experience interacting in real time with the spectators. There was a lot of talk, you know, 2016, about how VR and immersive theater could overlap in different ways. Hence why we partner with Pi-hole, these are Pi-hole, a New York-based experimental theater troupe who we thought were perfect for, to help us experiment in the space, and who were brave enough to like put on headsets and start figuring out how to move. They're also puppeteers. So it was easy for them to start figuring out these characters, how they move, how they express themselves. We actually took a short version of The Under, especially the live acts, to Sundance in 2018. And to be honest, that was our like previews, our workshops. We had the chance to experience with a limited audience how to use the tech, some of the characters, and again, which I'll show you in a minute, the actors' controllers.
Marvelous.
So this is on the left, what the first user journey for the Under Presents look like. And it helps break down a bit of the world of the Under. The Under, as a thing, is a place, as the teaser says, outside of time and space. And originally it was an upside down vessel that served as a main theater surrounded by a desert, ruled by this character, the MC, which you saw in the teaser that has the mask, who the story is he collects lost voyages, think like a Bermuda Triangle, and turns them and the people in them into acts for his theater. When we started this project, we were a bit more focused on a looping narrative that happens in the ship that is called the Eggman, which again, it's an act in the Under. Originally, the spectators would go on the ship, experience a narrative, and exit onto the main stage in the Under, where they could watch a show, whether it was one of our pre-recorded shows or a show that a live actor was giving, and then venture again into the ship's looping narrative to try to change the outcome of the story. Here on the right, before I change slide, you can see the actual ship, the Eggman, as it is in the experience. And underneath is what the theater looks like.
Beautiful designs.
Thank you. Little did we know back then that the Under as a place would grow outside of the theater and into a surrounding desert with monuments, secret gardens. We even built an under, and a bunch of different places that the live actors would visit to take the spectators into different adventures. It also became the multiplayer hub where groups of spectators could interact with each other and create magic spells. All of these places, in reality, starting appearing during development when the actors started creating their own stories. And these are loose stories that are based on the main story of the Under and the MC. But as they coming up with stories, we were like, well, we should put an observatory, we should put a bunker, we should put Stonehenge. Because again, the main root of the Under is this place that is collecting all these places or areas that time and space has broken, right? Again, think the Bermuda Triangle. And I could speak for hours about the Under, because in reality, it's more like 4 projects. We have the multiplayer area, the looping narrative, but I'm going to try to focus only on the live participatory experiences, which is what this panel is about. But in this map, again, just to show you, you can see the original Under on the left side in the middle. That was the theater. And everything else grew thanks to the actors. Let me see. So now, what were the actors doing? They could hop on stage and start an interactive show with the audience, or they could roam around the desert and interact in more of a one-on-one basis with either only one spectator or a group of them. In this slide, what you can see on the left is all of the avatars that the actors could choose from. On the right top, you can see their virtual dressing room, where they could choose, their avatar, their props for any given show. And in the bottom, you can see the controllers. We obviously use a Quest headset, and we designed these controllers to allow the actors to manipulate the space. They were able to cue music, spawn objects, teleport themselves and spectators to different areas, make themselves big, tiny. It was a lot of fun. And again, the tech innovation came hand in hand with the experimentation of the actors, who they trained to use these controllers, move around in the space, interact with the audience, and improvise, and all of that, but still keeping the main lore of the Under in mind. We trained the actors for about 2 months before opening, and I think we basically created this new breed of performers. When we first did our casting session, we had an idea of what we were looking for, but it was really interesting to find some actors, some really good actors, really good improvisers who couldn't get over the technology. They kept on feeling sick and they couldn't do it. Others who we had the comment of some of them being during the first month, like, I just forgot how to act. I don't know how to act anymore. I have to get used to the controllers. But eventually, after these 2 months, they were so good in it. When we launched in 2019, we had a cast of 20 actors covering 4-hour shifts on a 7 days a week, 8 to 10 p.m. schedule.
Wow.
And let me stop sharing this. I am going to show a little behind the scenes with the actors, because who better to speak about this than them?
That certainly sounds like an incredible commitment by those actors.
And here we go. All right. And that's about that for my presentation.
Thank you, Tanya. That was amazing. I mean, just the colors, the worlds, the environments of it all is mind blowing. I mean, eclectic is really just like too modest a word to describe it. But I love what you shared about the sort of the journey. Obviously, when you all began developing this, you all didn't anticipate a 2-year production schedule. So, but was that just part of the evolution in terms of as the actors began to come back with ideas, it just began to grow and expand and evolve?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, the 2 years came because after Sundance and after we had done the live shows and everything, we started doing these one-on-one acts where the actors, they were not only on stage, but they could go into desert and do, small skits with the spectators. And the reality, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the reality is Oculus came back to us and they were like, what if we develop this further? We're like, we would love to do that, but that's probably another year. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. So we did. But it was great that they had the faith on what we were doing to, basically give us more resources.
Of course. Now, were there limitations that you gave the actors and what they couldn't do? Because obviously, it seems like they were sky's the limit. But were there some guardrails or some boundaries for them?
Not really. When we started, we did. I mean, I'll share this. We did came to a point where they started creating storylines where they were referencing each other characters, and we kind of have to come in and do some writer room in there, just because we were like, we want everybody to have a great experience. So just make sure that if you're referencing another character, you still hold the world and you still, because if not, there's new people who might join and might not be aware of this other character and might be totally lost. But that also started happening because when we launched, we had this phenomenon with Discord. There was a giant community that was following the game, and they were recording the performances of the actors or their experiences with actors, and just sharing all these videos. And they started creating their own wiki of each of the characters and what they were doing and who. And I think the actors felt the pressure of responding to what they were doing. Again, a giant experiment, and we loved it. But I think even right now, the actors are no longer live. We always thought about the Under as, runs in a play. They can come back, they can disappear. And we had a wrap party in the Under for this group of actors. And it was, again, a phenomenon. The people at Discord, they showed their own videos. We had a lot of fan art. There was a dad and his kid who the dad was thanking us because he got to spend hours and hours in the under with his kid. So it was a lot of building community that we weren't expecting, but happened.
Well, it's wonderful again that you all found and built a community through this experience. But managing all those actors for all those hours, it's almost like managing a live theater production. Or
Yes.
was that always part of the plan, or did you all sort of discover that along the way?
Yeah, it was always part of the plan, and I think all three of us, Danny, Samantha, and myself, had worked in theater before. And that part we always saw in that way, like even like training the actors for 2 months, it was like you workshop a play, right? And having the actors on these shifts where, yes, it was, it's hard to manage as far as what if somebody doesn't show up, like who do we call, things like that. But it worked out pretty good, to be honest. And we did handle it a little bit more like you would handle a play. We had understudies and everything for when people couldn't show up.
Were there challenges with your users in terms of the hardware? Did they have any issues along the way once they were sort of experiencing it?
Not really. I don't think so. We never got any like complaints about the headsets themselves or anything. No.
Well, that's okay. That's good. And then, but then, I guess at some point you said that you all moved away from having the live performance, and so that was part of the vision as well, huh?
We didn't move away. What I was saying is originally, I think we were trying to do the live acts on stage where there would be an actor and like would interact with the audience. And we still did that throughout the entire the thing. If you were an actor and you were doing a shift, you could choose to, go on stage and do the live act, or you could just roam around the desert. And that's the part that grew right during development. The fact that we realized this was such a great tool and such a good way to like have people experience these live participatory adventures, that we gave them that, that other world outside in the desert, so that it wasn't just confined to the theater, and it worked out really well.
Well, I can see that. I mean, it's amazing and beautiful. And I love the fact that your virtual background places us right there at the stage, right there in the under. I'm going to transition to our final panelists, but hang on, Tanya. We're going to come back to you because I think the group's going to have a few more questions. And we are now going to shift to Brendan Bradley.
Hey there. I'm just having a great time listening. I've actually attended a lot of these experiences, so it's fun to sit back and hear how it was all made, and let's have a little fun. Thank you so much to the Producers Guild of America for hosting today's panel and for supporting new tools in storytelling. I'm Brendan Bradley, an actor, writer, director, producer, and scrappy storyteller, and I'm honored to be presenting today from inside the set of the live virtual reality theater play Jettison, to offer a glimpse of what's possible when artists use open source technology to reopen American theaters. I'm going to be controlling today's show from my phone, so if you'll be patient with me, I have a brief demonstration, and then I will answer questions at the end. And I've loved watching all the other presentations today that to me really navigate the delicate balance of what I consider to be the trifecta of virtual entertainment. The combination of live performance, immersive technology, and accessibility. Last March, my worlds collided as I found myself at the intersection of a decade of producing fringe theater in New York City and interactive new media content in Los Angeles. 5 years ago, I founded the Integrative Technology Lab at New York University. And when the school shut down last spring, our students actually used their assignment to repurpose their classroom by performing, presenting, and meeting in virtual reality. This caused playhouses around the world to reach out to me about how to take their own virtual productions outside of the Brady Bunch boxes of Zoom. However, we kept encountering the same challenge of access. Access to hardware, access to software, access to performers, access to audience, access to the show itself. Should you have to own a specific VR headset or platform in order to tell your story or to watch someone else's? We needed a ubiquitous solution to bring live, immersive, interactive entertainment to the most number of people with the least number of resources. I called it the Future Stages, a free theater-going experience built on Mozilla Hubs, which is an open source web XR platform that can be accessed on almost any device using the web browser. So your VR headset, your desktop computer, your laptop, your smartphone, your tablet. It was originally intended to be a remote collaboration platform. However, in an era where there's theater on Zoom and musicals on TikTok, there's no wrong way to leverage new technology for storytelling. I simply customized a 3D model of a theater in the 3D modeling software Blender. Then I optimized it as a GLTF file format that kept the file size small and the textures baked in, and was able to upload it to Mozilla's cloud-based world-building tool called Spoke. Then I published this Spoke template to the entire internet with tutorials for how to replace my placeholder artwork and live stream link. The Future Stages gives us the ability to host any live performance using 3D browser-based virtual reality and is accessible by any creator or audience member. Trifecta. I was approached by XR evangelist David Gotchfield, Alex Coulomb, Kevin Laibson, and Roman Milicic, who wanted to experiment with WebXR and live theater. Ironically, these technologists have become some of my closest friends and collaborators during the quarantine, even though we've never met in physical space. In VR, my brain and my body can't tell the difference. We had the team, we had a theater, now we just needed to choose a show. Jettison is a dark comedy about three strangers stranded in a lifeboat, starving on the open ocean. Two of them discover that one of them is hiding a pet rabbit, and the obvious conversation ensues. The play was originally produced in a rooftop swimming pool in New York City. The audience sat around the water, and the actors performed in a boat that I hand-built. If you think 3D modeling is hard, try sanding fiberglass. The play went on to be performed at a variety of more traditional playhouses and was published, but it was somewhat problematic and unproducible, given the fact that it had a boat and a rabbit that needed to be brought to life on stage. But in virtual reality, these challenges merely become choices. We can replace the floor of the theater with an ocean, spawn a 3D rabbit, and have actors join from their live-action web cameras or puppet virtual reality avatars. The audience can attend from anywhere in the world, on almost any device, and watch and even interact with us before, during, and after the show. But Brendan, why are you talking about all this stuff? I thought you said it was accessible. Why don't we experience it for ourselves? So I'm going to load up a Chrome browser with the URL of a customized version of the Future Stages for our show, Jettison. And if you think about it, the experience of live theater actually already includes an organic onboarding process. I spawn outside the building. I'm directed to the box office where a house manager or usher sets my expectations for the show, troubleshoots any problems, and helps navigate me to my seat. Our audiences actually expressed how comforted they were by the familiarity of this established ritual. They know this world. They know the rules. They just need to discover their new place within it. And unlike some of the more uncomfortable behaviors in some online spaces, our audience actually preserved the etiquette of the physical space in the virtual venue, a theater. To date, it is still the only place I've been in VR where participants actually said, "Excuse me," when their avatars bumped into each other. Speaking of those avatars, I can't see mine right now because it's my body, so I can't see myself. However, I'm a little default robot that I can customize when I enter. I can use my mouse to click and drag on the screen to look around wherever I like. Or I could use Q and E to turn incrementally. I can use the arrow keys to walk around the space wherever I like, just like a video game. And I can hold down spacebar to see a variety of interactions for different objects in the room. I can also activate my microphone or my web camera so that I can talk to other participants. That's how I'm doing all this nifty stuff with my little cheap green screen. And then I can direct people into the actual theater to pick their own specific seat and watch the show. Pretty cool. Now, for our first production, we wanted to handcuff ourselves to the same access that anyone would have in the theater. So we used Mozilla's free server, which limits capacity to about 30 participants. And we used those default robot avatars and Creative Commons models that could be brought in from a database right here, built in. So any participant or collaborator can spawn any object into the room during rehearsal as needed. Or you can just drag and drop a file into the space, like this music cue. Let's delete that. Mozilla Hubs is open source, so you could just download the code, customize it however you want, and host it on your own server. However, again, we really wanted to limit what we did to what anybody could do. So when we did want to get fancy, I'll go back out to the lobby here. Our stage manager actually injected small little JavaScript snippets into their web browser directly during the show, and it populated on all the other clients in real time. This allowed us to spawn very specific objects on the fly or animate them to a very specific coordinate. So for example, you'll see this screen can descend and raise on command. Pretty neat. Our incredible actors pictured here, Nycan Robinson, Nick Carrillo, and Ashley Clements, and myself, actually live in 3 different cities when we did the show. And they didn't own VR headsets. So we worked with a company called LBX Immersive that usually does lots of headsets for large-scale events, but obviously they weren't very busy last year. So they shipped out a Pico and an Oculus to our actors for a month to rehearse and perform. Speaking of performing, what is it like to perform in virtual reality? I'm going to get myself set up in a seat here, move this out of the way so I don't stub my toe, and grab my headset and controllers to jump into the space as a performer. Correct hands, correct hands. Of course, this would be the most difficult part of the presentation. You're welcome. Now, the first thing that you will notice is that my avatar, you're over there, that my avatar gets hands. This allows me to more organically gesture and interact with different objects. And costume changes are as simple as a click of a button. Here's the puppet avatar, played by Ashley Clements, again a default robot. Here's default robot Ezra, played by Nycan Robinson. Default robot Ryan, played by Nick Carrillo. And here is default robot Charlie, played by me. And here is my little bunny that I used in the show. Now, if you know how to 3D model, you can actually create your own customized avatars. So for example, Ready Player Me allows you to upload a headshot and turn yourself into an immediately rigged and ready avatar. It's pretty cool. You might recognize this next avatar from Tanya's project. What can I say? I'm a fanboy. And you can even turn your audience into just a point of light so that they can illuminate the world around them in real time. Pretty cool. So you can see how quickly this all scales when you start introducing bespoke modeling and world building. So I'm going to take on this customized version of Charlie, give myself some stand-ins here. It's a nice little Ryan. And let's get in a little Ezra here. Hey, it beats a tennis ball, right? And I'll grab my little bunny, situate myself up in here. Excellent, excellent. Now, Ezra and Ryan, let me turn more towards you as a live action person. Currently in two realities. That's probably the biggest struggle of being an actor in these spaces. So Ryan and Ezra have discovered Charlie's bunny and are forcing him to explain himself before they ultimately jettison the creature that is tearing them all apart. When the ship was going down, I was so scared. I guess the will to survive takes over, right? Ezra grabbed as much food as he could carry. Ryan raided the bar, but me, I just panicked. As I ran for the top deck, I found this little guy. He looked so pale and fluffy, frozen in the middle of the corridor. I never really thought about where he came from, but I knew I had to save him. So I scooped him into my pocket and I kept running. Our first few days on the water, I just coddled him, mostly to comfort myself. But after we lost Lisa, sorry, Ezra. I knew I couldn't tell anyone. He's all I have. And I'm gonna get him out of this. No. No. Ezra. Ezra, help. I can't. Do you see him? I'm sorry. I was supposed to be the one to save him. And I know you all want to applaud furiously. So you could hold down spacebar and select a variety of emojis to express yourselves, or turn on that microphone and web camera to cheer along while our actors take a bow. This is all available right now for free in your web browser. Live, immersive, accessible. I'm not here tonight to actually pitch you on my story. I want you to make yours. Thank you.
Brendan, that was amazing. Thank you so much for that presentation.
Thank you.
I now have a small sense of what it might have been like to be in your class at NYU. That was a full tutorial how to do it. I just like exactly how the process is made. Wonderful that you just sort of open and sharing. Have you always been, has it always been your plan to as you explore and create new technologies, just to again share it with the world and let everyone else play and explore and develop along with you?
That's a very generous interpretation of it. I think it's actually a little more self-serving. I'm an actor first and foremost, and that means I need people to play with. And so for me, when I look at these technologies, which I've been playing with over the last decade, technology's awesome. I'm a total dork, and I love playing with new stuff, but it's never fun unless there's other kids in the sandbox. So for me, it only works if it scales and if it's accessible and ubiquitous for all people. I grew up doing community theater in North Carolina, and the idea being that basically that was an hour away, and if I didn't have access to tell stories, I wouldn't be here today. And so for me, especially in this moment when so many have been stuck at home, hearing the presentations today about the empowerment of creators who are able to work remotely and actually still get to participate in the creative economy, I think that's what it's really all about. It's a tourniquet. And then we can get into the amazing work that everybody's doing with like incredible dynamic lighting and like 4K rendering. Like that's awesome. But I think first we just need that access. And so for me, it's just about creating a sandbox that people can join me in, and then selfishly I get to play.
Right. Tell us, obviously you wanted, there's certain sort of limitations you set for yourself in terms of sort of a live theater experience. And you chose this story because it was accessible and easy, or was there anything else that drove you to do this story, The Jettison?
We started with Jettison, my collaborators that kind of approached me when I launched the theater and said, we'd like to kind of play with those more customizable JavaScript elements and things, and really to explore like the modes of, is it more satisfying to see live actors? Is it more satisfying to see avatars? Let's play with a combination of both. And we started very quickly. We were talking to some playwrights, and you could kind of see the eyes glaze over, and you could see people also start getting really nervous about how the creative was being represented in the narrative. And I think that so much of what has been spoken to tonight has been about that really necessary incubation process and workshop process and collaboration. And we just didn't have any resources, funding, or time to do that. And so rather than ruin someone else's play, I said, let's ruin mine. And so that's why we actually chose Jettison just to start with. And then we actually remounted last month during the Innovation Awards, specifically with reaching out to artists all over the world. So we had multiple shows then use this same technique to onboard. And then we seamlessly switched through each of the shows because each show could build their own little world. And we could just, lights go to black, come up in the new world, lights go to black, come up in the new world. And that really allowed us to scale the solutions now that we knew that what worked and what didn't. We weren't worried we were going to ruin someone's narrative or script.
It's almost like you created a way for a virtual theater festival of some sort.
That's exactly what we did. It was an evening of 1X. It was a dark ride.
One of our listeners had a question regarding about the limitations of the hub. Again, I think it has a 30-person limitation. How are you managing that?
So there's Hub, what we started calling Hub Vanilla, which is just Hub out of the box. It's a free server. You could go to Hub's, I'm going to get it wrong. I don't work for them. It's like hubs.mozilla.com or something. But you can start a room right now. You could grab a template of like a seashore or a conference room and start making stuff in it. And those limitations really are baked in because they're giving you free server space to play on. But you can then scale that up on your own server. So we actually used an AWS server for the One Act Festival. And we were able to get closer to about 40, 50 people in the room. I've gone really extreme on a different project where we started stripping away certain things, like the audience couldn't use their audio and things like that. And we were able to get closer to like 70 people, which is cool. And then the stage manager on our shows always streams out their POV to a secondary source like Twitch or YouTube. And that's the monitor that the actors can pop in on if something happens with their headset. And also that's if someone doesn't want to experience, what we've really found that is so fascinating, especially coming at it from the lens of theater, is, I forget who was talking about it earlier in the evening, they said, audiences are really good about going, oh no, I'm supposed to just sit here and watch. And some people really like that. Some people want to get, roll up their sleeves, get involved. And other people just want to watch a story and kind of sit back and enjoy. And so we wanted to make it possible for audiences to kind of self-select what level of participation they had in the experience.
Right, great. There's another question for you that I'm going to go to in a second, but I do want to invite the rest of our panelists back and invite our listeners at home to begin dropping some questions in the Q&A, and let's see if we can just expand the conversation. But back to you, Brendan. Christopher is asking, how was Future Stages funded and what's the monetization strategy going forward?
So Future Stages was funded the way that all basement theater, fringe theaters funded, in that it wasn't. Straight up wasn't. This was a total labor of love and curiosity with a bunch of unemployed people that would have we are not allergic to money. We would have taken it. But we were basically trying to ideate whether there was a there and whether there was a model. When we did the One Act Festival, we offered a pay what you can ticket. And what we found really fascinating was 64% of our audience opted to pay something. And of the paying members, a third of them chose to pay $20 or more. So that is free, like scrappy robot theater on a web browser with no celebrities and no marketing and no budget. And people were willing to pay $20 to go see us act in VR, which is pretty cool. So I could see there being that kind of ticketed layer. And some of these other WebXR and VR platforms are starting to bake in a monetization layer, which is cool, or a microtransaction layer. And so I think that there is a really cool runway there to start really baking in the idea that, you could either pass the hat, if you want to do it that way, or actually start setting a price for what an experience like this is worth, which is something that theater artists and storytelling artists have grappled with forever.
Well, it's good that, again, many of our panelists are exploring those avenues of how to monetize it, how to make it a profitable experience, and as well as pushing the envelope. I love that you included an avatar from Tanya's piece. So you've seen everyone else's VR experience?
Yeah, I'm that guy. I've been to all of y'all's stuff, and I'm nerding out so hard right now because I'm just such a fanboy of the amazing work that everybody is doing, because I just feel like a visitor in this remarkable pixelated world.
Well, certainly, I saw a lot of similarities between things that you were doing, Brendan, and Tanya was doing in terms of managing actors and managing the user experience. I love that you included a house manager to sort of help people into the experience and get them acclimated in terms of the way they were going to experience the theater, this new version of a theater experience.
Yeah, I definitely think we worked with actors from both Adventure Lab and with Underpresents on our One Act Festival. And there is this really cool conversation happening around like an actor guide, right? Who can kind of simulate both roles. I think about it like dinner theater or standardized patience, where you're kind of straddling the dual reality of, I'm here to take you on this journey, but, oh shoot, are you okay? Let me help you out real fast. Okay, now we're back in, which is super fun.
Yes, of course. Again, I'm looking to see if there's any questions from any one of our listeners. Any comments from any of the other panelists? Anything that you all want to share that we didn't get to when we flew through each of your presentations? Well, lots of folks on mute. Tanya, you were going to share something with us?
No, I think it's exciting. I think hopefully, you know, after last year, after the shutdown and everything, a lot more people got a headset. And that's what we can all hope for, because in reality, like it all depends how many people have access to this for us to keep experimenting on it.
Absolutely. And I think I love that. Oh, go ahead, Max.
I just, when Tanya was speaking, I wanted to speak of how what you guys did with The Under was such an inspiration for us. And actually we feel like you guys got something right that we still struggle with, which is this onboarding process, making people feel like they're a native of the world before they're going into performance. I think that's a key thing that I think this idea of creating Broadway on an island is challenging, right? To get people to show up to a new experience and say, hey, you're gonna have to learn how to be an audience member from scratch, versus, oh no, you spent some time getting used to this world in the Underpresents. I call it like an overworld model, and then create performance within that world. So it's like, I think we need to build Broadways in New Yorks, and I think how either we need to build those New Yorks and create performance within them, or find those places where people are already hanging out in digital places and enable performance. And I think that's kind of what Brendan is doing. And so I think that this idea of going to places where there are already players, gamers, people, and creating performance in those worlds is the next step forward.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's all of us, because like people are not used to doing this, you know, like sure, gamers are a little more used to entering these worlds because the nature of gaming, but for us, like the first couple of times that we showed the experience, it was a little hard because people who are not used to it, and that's probably in a way what you identify as the onboarding, like got so polished, because we realized that a lot of people don't know how to move in the world, don't know how to react. Like you kind of have to like hopefully in the story, like in the world, explain the controllers, explain the locomotion. But eventually, hopefully, if we're all doing it right, it would come second nature to people. Like, people didn't know how to use an iPad. And now, here we are.
Yeah, touchscreens are everywhere for everyone now. Mm-hmm. There's a question here for Kim from Christopher. Kim, are you focusing on creating your own IP, or are you trying to acquire rights to other popular IP for future experiences, or both?
Yeah, we're doing both. We're definitely interested in growing to include IP. We've been meeting with all the major studios about sort of what's interesting to them, and if they're, you know, how intrigued they are with sort of getting, we keep saying like, what's beyond streaming? Like almost everybody lost the streaming war. What's beyond that? How are you going to reach your next audiences? But, you know, Dr. Crumb is something that's near and dear to our heart, that we have, you know, multiple projects written for, and we'd be interested in doing both kinds of experiences, more IP and also working with studio partners.
Cool.
And I'd love to check with the group in general and just your thoughts about business models and how independent producers can sort of make money doing this. Do they need to partner with an established studio like yourselves, or how? What do you recommend for those up and coming, you know, independent producers who want to, you know, start telling stories in VR?
Do the thing, make the thing. Just do it. Just fail really, really, really fast. And there's so many now grants that are starting to kind of pop up out there, which is great, but they all do kind of rely on you coming to the table with an actual case study or a prototype that you want to grow and build. And so just kind of waiting for permission to get started, I think that's the independent producer's mantra of just like, you know, make the world you want to live in. And I think every project that we've heard about tonight, that there was a lot of sweat equity in there early on, and a lot of stuff that did not work, and none of us mentioned the stuff that didn't work because it wasn't fun. But like, there's so much stuff that is the, you know, the experimental process. And so I think just get started, just do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of open world, you know, platforms out there already to try stuff out on. VR Chat and Rec Room, just get in there and build stuff and try stuff out. And yeah, like Brendan was saying, just fail a lot. That's the key. Find out what doesn't work. Yeah, behind every sort of award-winning project is a whole stack of all the failures, you know, that happen to get there.
And I would also say finding the right collaborators, it's really important for these projects. And when I say the right, other than, you know, personalities and all that, it is true that marrying like the engineering with the creative and the performance is very important, because I struggle sometimes when I give talks to theater people about the project, and I have to be like, well, but you do need like that side. Like, it's not just on the performance side, because yeah, I do believe you guys can create this, but you got to make sure that there's this other side of the project that you don't need to know about. You just need to like find these people who are willing to go down this road with you and experiment and create it.
Absolutely. I think it's that that ongoing dialogue between the engineers and the creative, right? And neither one of them working in isolation from each other, but like, what do you think about this? It's got to be very, very collaborative. And if you're working for or with an experienced team, it has to be, there's someone working on this kind of project from a typical team. You have to pick the people who are flexible, who are collaborative, who are willing to have everything break all the time, all day long. And that's a very specific kind of both artist and engineer who's willing to just be on something that's broken most of the time.
Well, very nice, very nice. Well, I want to thank you all. It's getting a little late there for some of you who are on the East Coast. So I want to thank you all for participating, for sharing your incredible projects, but more importantly, your process of how you developed them and brought them to life. I want to make sure that all of our listeners at home know that there are additional panels discussions in our Innovators series, and including the next one, the world building and storytellers in VR, which is going to be on June 10th. So we look forward to having everyone come back. But again, thank you all. Thank you, Kim, Max, Kane, Larry, Tanya, and Brendan, for sharing with us your incredible live participatory work.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you. This
thanks
is
so much.
amazing.
This is great.
Yes.
Super inspiring. Keep going.
All right, thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.